Welcome back to This is Thailand. Sit down, get comfortable, because this one's a slow burn and it's going to stick with you. Today's story comes from a man named Bas, 63 years old, from Utrecht in the Netherlands. Spent his whole working life as a heating engineer, 40 years of it, fixing boilers and ventilation systems. The kind of bloke who could walk into a cold building and tell you exactly what was wrong just by listening to it. Practical man, careful man. The kind of man who reads the warnings, does his homework, and swears he'd never end up as one of these sad stories you hear about. And that's exactly why I wanted to share his with you, because Bas isn't going to tell you about a bar girl who robbed him blind. There's no villain in this one. No con artist, no fake tears, no secret Thai boyfriend hiding in the background. What happened to Bas was quieter than that, and in some ways, harder to see coming. He came to Thailand with his eyes open. He thought that made him safe. He met a good woman. Genuinely good, I want to be clear about that from the start. And he did what a lot of men dream about doing. What happened after that is the whole reason he wanted to talk. I'll let him explain it himself, because there are things in here he understands now that he didn't understand then, and you need to hear it in his own words. Here's Bas. So, where do I start? My name is Bas. I'm 63. I fixed heating systems for 40 years, in and around Utrecht mostly, sometimes Amsterdam when the money was good. HVAC, they call it now. Ventilation, boilers, heat pumps at the end. 40 years of crawling into plant rooms and finding out why something stopped working. And I was good at it. I'll say that plainly because it matters to the rest of this. You give me a system that's broken, I can find the fault. A valve, a blocked line, a sensor reading wrong. There's always a reason. That's the thing about machines. They don't lie to you. They do exactly what they're built to do, every time. And if you understand how they're built, you understand what they'll do. Simple. I built my whole life on that, on things making sense. I met Marika when I was 24. We were married 36 years. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you it was some great romance, because it wasn't. Not the way films make it out. It was ordinary. It was good. She did the talking, I did the fixing. She remembered the birthdays, kept the friends, filled the house with people at Christmas. I was there. Steady. That was my job in the marriage, if you want to call it that. Be steady, then she got sick. Ovarian cancer. I won't drag you through all of it. 3 years, there was chemo, and then there was a stretch where we thought it worked. That stretch was the worst part, actually, because you let yourself hope. And then it came back, and near the end, we put a hospice bed in the front room, downstairs, so she wouldn't have to manage the steps. She died in that room, in the front room of our own house, where we used to have people over. Yeah. So, and here's the thing I keep coming back to. My whole life, 40 years, I fixed what was broken. That's what I do. That's what I am. Something breaks, you diagnose it, you repair it. And I sat next to that bed for months and there was nothing I could do. No fault to find, no part to order. The one time it actually mattered, the one system I'd have given everything to fix, and I just had to sit there and watch it fail. I don't think I've ever gotten over that. Not the losing her, the being useless while it happened. After she was gone, I couldn't stay in the house. Everyone tells you to wait a year, don't make big decisions, and I know that's good advice. I do. I sold it anyway. I couldn't walk past that front room every morning to make my coffee. I just couldn't. Sold the house, sold most of the furniture, put it all in the bank. And when the dust settled, I had what? About 160,000 euros sitting there. Plus my AOW, my pension, which for a Dutch man who worked his whole life is not nothing. Maybe 2,000 a month, all in. So on paper I was fine. Comfortable even. That's what people kept saying to me. At least you're comfortable, Bas. Comfortable. I had money and a pension and a little flat and absolutely no idea what a single day was for. That's the part nobody warns you about. I'd get up at 6 out of habit, 40 years of early starts your body doesn't forget. And then I'd just stand in the kitchen, and there was nothing. Nobody to fix anything for, nobody to be steady for. I realized, and this took me a while to admit, that Marika had been the one with all the warmth. All of it. The friends were her friends. The talking was her talking. I'd never actually learned how to have people in my life because I never had to. She did it for both of us. And now she was gone, and I was 61 years old, and I didn't know how to be lonely properly. I just knew how to keep busy, so I kept busy. Cleaned things that were already clean, reorganized a garage I no longer had, and I told myself I was fine. I told myself I was too sensible for anything stupid. I want you to remember that, because that's the line, right there. That's the one that got me. A practical man who thinks he's too practical to be a fool. That's the easiest man in the world to fool. I just didn't know it yet. Anyway, there was a fella I used to work with, Wim. Retired a couple years before me, moved out to Thailand, place called Hua Hin, and every so often he'd pop up on Facebook. Golf course, blue sky, a beer sweating on a table, him grinning like an idiot in a polo shirt, sunsets, that kind of thing. And I'd be sitting in Utrecht in November. You know November there. 4:30 in the afternoon and already black outside. That wet cold that gets into your knees. Sitting in my flat with the heating on, my own heating, mind, that I could fix myself, small mercies. Looking at Wim on a golf course with the sun on his face. I wasn't looking for a woman. I want that on the record. I genuinely wasn't. I told myself I just wanted somewhere warm, somewhere the days would be full, somewhere I could sit outside in the evening instead of staring at the same four walls. That's what I told myself. I'll book a trip, one thought, just to look. I flew into Bangkok first, Suvarnabhumi. And I'll tell you, the second the doors slid open outside the terminal, the heat it comes at you like standing in front of an open oven. That wet heat, your shirt stuck to your back before you found the taxi rank. Somebody's frying something on the pavement, chilies and pork, and there's that smell underneath everything, sweet and a bit rotten at the same time. Drains and flowers. I didn't hate it. That surprised me. I thought I'd hate it. Then a few hours down to Hua Hin, because that's where Wim was. Not Pattaya. I want to make that clear, because everybody hears Thailand and thinks walking street, the neon, the girls hanging off the old men. Hua Hin isn't that. It's quieter. Golf mostly. A lot of retired Germans and Scandinavians and a few Dutch. Nice beach, night market, families. That mattered to me. I'd told myself I wasn't going to one of those places. I'd done my reading. And I had, that's the thing. Before I flew out, I spent, weeks on the expat forums. Thai Visa, the Facebook groups, all of it. Reading the horror stories, the bloke who built a house and lost it, the one who put 4 million baht into a bar and it was gone in a year, the one who found the line messages to the Norwegian fella she had on the side. I read hundreds of them, and I sat there in Utrecht thinking, well, that won't be me. Those men were lonely and stupid, and they let they thought with the wrong part of themselves. One was different. I was going to look and enjoy the sun and be sensible. Yeah, I actually thought that. In those words, the first week was just lovely, I won't lie to you. Wim took me round. We played golf at Black Mountain, which is a proper course, better than anything I could afford back home. Beer's nothing out there. A big chang at a little place is maybe 70 baht. Call it €2. We'd sit at this bar restaurant near Soi 80 in the evenings, plastic chairs, fan going, and eat some tam and moo ping off the grill for next to nothing. The pork skewers, the sticky rice in the little bags. I ate like a king for what a sandwich costs at Schiphol, and the warmth of people. I don't mean the weather now, I mean the people. Everybody smiling, everybody friendly. After a year of standing in my kitchen in the dark talking to nobody, it got to me more than I expected. I'd say something daft in my terrible 3 words of Thai, and the whole shop would laugh, good-natured, and somebody'd top up my beer. I hadn't felt like part of anything in a long time. I did see the other side too. Wim had a few mates, expats, and some of them were the type. You know the type. 68, 70, red in the face. A girl of 25 who's looking at her phone the whole time he's talking. Buying rounds for the whole bar to feel like a big man. And I'd watch them and feel, and I'm not proud of this, I'd feel superior. There we go, I'd think. That's the fool the forums warned about. Not me. I'm just here for the golf. A man who's busy feeling superior about a trap isn't watching where his own feet are going. But I didn't know that yet. The guest house Wim put me in was a small place. Family run, tucked back off the main road. 12 rooms maybe. Clean, cheap, nothing fancy. About 800 baht a night, 20 euro. And the woman who ran the front desk, that's Knock. She wasn't, look, I'll be honest with you, because there's no point otherwise. She wasn't some stunning young thing. She was 41. Handsome woman, I'd say, rather than beautiful. Serious face. She ran that desk and the little bar and did the books. And she ran it tight. First morning I'm there, she's going through a ledger with a pencil, actual paper ledger, and I made some comment about my bill, and she looked up and corrected my arithmetic. Just flat. No, is 840, you stay extra night, you count wrong. Not rude, just right. And I laughed. Because she was right, I had counted it wrong. I don't know how to explain what that did to me. 40 years I spent respecting people who were good at their job. That's my whole measure of a person, really. Are they good at the thing they do, or are they messing about? And here was this woman who was clearly good at hers. Didn't flirt, didn't fuss over me, barely looked up half the time. If anything, she was a bit stern with me, and there was something about that I trusted. The girls in the bars are all over you. Knock couldn't have cared less whether I stayed or went, far as I could tell. We got to talking over the next couple of weeks. Slow. She'd be doing the accounts in the evening, and I'd have a Leo at the little bar, and we'd just talk. Her English was decent, better than my Thai by a mile. Eldest daughter from up in Isan, near Udon, sent money home to her parents every month. She told me that plainly, no drama about it. It's just a fact of her life. She'd been married before to a Thai man. No good, gone. No foreign boyfriend that I could see, and believe me, by then, I was watching for it. She never asked me for anything, not once. That whole first trip. That's what I kept coming back to. 3 weeks, and she never once put her hand out. I'd booked 10 days. I stayed 22. Changed my flight, paid the change fee, told myself it was the golf. It wasn't the golf. And on the last evening packing up, I found myself thinking not about the beach or the sun, but about whether she'd be at the desk in the morning when I checked out. 63 years old and thinking about that like a schoolboy. I felt ridiculous. I felt about 19. I hadn't felt anything for so long that even feeling ridiculous was something. It was better than the nothing. I flew back to Utrecht. Gray, wet, half foreign dark, and I already knew I was going back. Not to look this time. I told myself I'd take it slow, be careful, do it properly, meet her family, no stupid moves. I meant it as well. That's the part that still gets me. I went back 3 months later, told myself I'd take it slow, and, well, I did actually. That's the strange part. One did take it slow. Nobody rushed me. That's what makes this hard to explain to people who weren't there. This time I didn't stay at the guest house as a guest exactly. I mean, I did first week, but then Knock found me a little studio to rent off one of her cousins. Month to month, 8,000 baht, about 200 euro. Clean, tiled floor, aircon that rattled but worked, spirit house out front with the marigolds and the red Fanta. Somebody left for the spirits every morning. I liked it there. I'd wake up to the roosters and the temple down the road, that low chanting drifting over before it got hot, and I'd walk down for coffee and some cow tom, the rice soup, and I felt, I don't know, useful again. Like the day had a shape, and Knock and I, we just carried on the way we'd started. Slow. She worked. I'd sit at the bar in the evening with a Leo, and we'd talk when she had a minute. She wasn't hanging off me. If anything, I was the one making the effort, and I noticed that, and I liked it. Every horror story I'd read, the woman was all over the fella from day one. Knock made me work for a smile, made me feel like I'd earned something when I got one. I'll tell you the thing that got me, properly got me. About a month in, I came down with something. Dodgy stomach. We've all had it out there. Probably the ice or some tam that sat out too long. Proper knocked me flat for 2 days. And knock without me asking. She closed the bar early and brought me joke, the rice porridge, and this bitter herbal stuff. And she sat there while I ate it, telling me off for eating from the wrong cart. Not soft about it. Cross with me, really. You farang, you never careful, you think you strong. And I lay there thinking. Nobody's looked after me since Marika. Nobody's been cross with me for my own good since Marika. You don't know how much you miss that until it's gone. Somebody caring enough to be annoyed at you. That's not a scam. I want to be clear about that for anybody watching this thinking, I'm about to tell you she was playing me from the start. She wasn't. I've thought about it every which way, and I still don't believe she was. She was a decent woman who was, I think, genuinely a bit fond of the boring old Dutchman who respected her and didn't grope her and asked about her day. Both things can be true, though. That's the whole thing I didn't understand yet. That's the thing this whole story's about, really. Both things can be true at the same time. Because here's where the money starts. And it starts small, and it starts reasonable, and, this is important, it starts with me offering. The bar had a problem with the beer cooler, the compressor, and of course, that's my whole life, isn't it? I had the back off it in 10 minutes. Bad start capacitor, cost about 400 baht to sort, and I fixed it myself. Wouldn't take a satang for it. And the look on her face, like I'd done something remarkable. Word got round the family up in a Sayan, apparently. The farang who fixes things. Then her mother's fridge, up in the village, packed in. And I said, without her even asking, I said, send someone the money, I'll cover it. 6,000 baht for a new one, about €150. Nothing to me, and I felt good doing it. That's the part you have to understand. I wasn't being fleeced. I was enjoying it. After a year of being no use to anybody, being the man who could just make a problem go away with €150, it felt like being a man again. Then it was her phone, cracked screen, and I got her a new one. 10,000 baht or so. Then a bit toward the guest house when a slow month hit. I told her, look, just let me help. It's nothing. 20,000 that time, €500. She actually didn't want to take it, made a fuss, and me being me, I insisted, because a Dutchman likes to feel he's the sensible one holding the purse. None of it was demanded. Every single time, I offered first. You see how that works? By the time real money came up, I'd already trained myself to be the one reaching for the wallet. I'd built the habit with my own 2 hands. I'm good at building things. Then one evening, few months in, we're sitting out back after closing, the gecko's going on the wall, and she tells me about Sinsad, the dowry, the bride price. Tells me plainly, a bit embarrassed even, looking at the table. Says her family will expect it, that it's the custom, that it's about face, about her parents being able to hold their heads up in the village. Says some families ask crazy money, but hers are not like that. Says the amount doesn't matter to her, only that it's done properly. And I sat there, and I didn't feel trapped. That's what I need you to understand. I felt like a man being told the rules of something serious. Grown up, like a proper arrangement between grown-ups. Not some scam. She wasn't asking, she was explaining. There's a difference, and I clung to that difference. 400,000 baht, it worked out. About 10,500 euro. And I did the sensible man thing. I looked it up. I asked around. I found out that for a woman of 41, respectable, never mind she'd been married before, that was fair. Modest even. Some fellas pay double for a girl half her worth as a person. So I told myself I was getting a bargain, which, Christ, Listen to me. Getting a bargain. On a wife. But that's how I framed it to myself at the time. Careful, Bass. Did his homework. Got a fair price. Nobody pulled a fast one. I said yes. And she cried, just a little, and it looked real, and I still think it was real. That was the last moment, I think, where I could have just been a man having a nice time in the sun. After that, I was something else. I was in. We married in the dry season, up in her village outside Udon. And I'll say this, it was one of the best days I've had since Marika passed. I won't pretend otherwise. That's part of why this is complicated. Izan in the morning. Flat land, rice paddies gone gold and stubbly, water buffalo standing about in the shallows, dust on everything, roosters from about 4 in the morning, and then the monks came at dawn, this line of them in the orange robes walking the lane with their bowls, and the whole family out on their knees putting sticky rice in, making merit. Tamboon, they call it. I stood at the back not knowing what to do with my hands. Big pink Dutchman in a shirt already soaked through, and one of the aunties grabbed me and pushed me down to my knees and showed me. Everybody laughing. Kind laughing, though. Not at me. With me, sort of. The monks blessed us. White string round the wrists, the size sin. They tied it round mine and Knox and looped it round the whole gathering, everybody connected by this thread, and the old monk chanting low. And I'll be honest with you, I had to look at the floor for a minute. First time I'd felt part of a family in a long time. A whole village turned out. And it was for me in a way. The Farang who'd come to do it properly. That's the thing about face, which I only half understood then. Me being there, doing it right, paying the sin sod in front of everyone. I raised that family up. Their daughter married a Westerner who respected the customs. In a village like that, that's everything. That's status you can't buy any other way. And they were genuinely, genuinely happy. I don't doubt that to this day. The sin sod got laid out on a table. The 400,000 baht, plus some gold. Knock's mother had wanted gold shown as well. Few baht weight of it. The proper Thai wedding gold. And I'd covered that too. Another 60,000 or so, 1,500 euro. It gets displayed, you see, the money and the gold. Everyone sees it. And then, well, then it goes to the family. That's understood. I understood it. I wasn't naive about that part. Right. So that's the wedding. Lovely day. Now the house, because you can't marry into a family like that and have your wife's parents living in an old timber place with a tin roof while their faring son-in-law's back in a rented studio. It doesn't sit right in their world. And I'll be straight with you. It didn't sit right with me either. They'd been good to me. The mother fed me till I could barely stand. I wanted to do it. Nobody had to twist my arm. The plan was a proper house on the family land. Concrete, block-built, tiled, the works. 2 bedrooms, a big covered area out front for sitting, room for the parents. And I costed it out myself. That's the joke of it, isn't it? I costed everything. I'm the man who costs things. And it came to about 2 million baht. 53,000 euro. My money, obviously. Nok had nothing spare. She sent everything home already. Now here's where the clever man really shows himself. I knew. I want that on the record. I knew a foreigner can't own land in Thailand. I'd read it 40 times on those forms. Farang cannot own land. Full stop. So the land was the family's, and the house would go in Nok's name, because that's how it works. And I sat there feeling proud of myself for knowing that. Feeling like I'd done my homework while all those other mugs hadn't. As if knowing you're handing your money to something you can never own is the same as protecting yourself. Nobody ever mentioned a lease. Nobody mentioned a usufruct. That's the thing, the sit-in-life agreement. Right to live there even if it's not yours, registered at the land office. I didn't know the word usufruct at the time. Didn't know it existed. And to be fair to Nok, I don't think she did either. It's not like she was sitting there scheming, hiding the legal protections from me. Neither of us knew. That's almost worse somehow. 2 people who didn't know, and one of them putting up 50 grand. There was a moment, I think about it. At the wedding there was this old boy, a farmer, uncle or cousin of somebody, bit drunk on the hong thong, And he says to me through one of the younger ones translating, he says, grinning, "House and wife name, ah? You good husband, you trust," and laughed, and clapped me on the shoulder. And something in it, the way he said trust, the way he laughed, something went past me for half a second. Just a flicker, like a gauge twitching when it shouldn't. And I said, "Yeah, yeah," waved it off, poured him another. Because what was I going to do? Stand up in the middle of the wedding and demand paperwork? Insult the family? Insult knock? Over money in front of everyone? On the one day that was all about face? Kreng Jai, they call it. You don't make people lose face. You don't cause the scene. 1-500 absorbed just enough of that to know making a fuss was unthinkable. So I didn't. I told myself the old boy was drunk. I told myself knock would never, not in 100 years. And the thing is, she wouldn't. She never did do anything with that house, that's true. But you see what happened there? I let she'd never do the job that Elise should have done. I let my trust in a good woman stand in for the paperwork. And a system doesn't run on trust. A system runs on how it's built. I, of all people, knew that. 40 years I knew that. The build started. And it started smooth, and then it did what every build does. Crept. The concrete cost more. Then they might as well tile the terrace properly while the men were there. Then the mother, very reasonably, thought if we're building anyway, put a proper bathroom on their side. Each thing sensible on its own. Each thing another 40-50,000 baht. I'd wire another payment over from my Dutch account, watch it land, tell myself it was the last big one. By the time it was rendered and painted, pale yellow, with the spirit house out front and the parents moved in beaming, I'd spent closer to 2.5 million baht on it, 65,000 euro, all in, near enough, with the gold and the sin sod folded in. Of my 160, gone into a house, on land, in a country that I could not own a single brick of. And I stood in that yard the day it was done, the parents so happy, Knock's hand in mine, and I felt like a good man who'd done a good thing. I want you to hold both those pictures, because both of them are true. That's the whole trap, right there. It closed on me while I was smiling. For about a year I was happy. I want to put that in, because it would be easy to tell this like it was misery start to finish. And it wasn't. It really wasn't. We settled into a rhythm. I kept the studio down in Hua Hin for a bit. Then we spent more and more time up at the new house in the village. And there's a lot to be said for that life, there is. Up before it's hot, coffee on the terrace, the parents pottering about, the mother already at the market. Somebody always cooking. Larb and sticky rice, some tom so hot it'd take the roof of your mouth off. The whole family eating off the same mats on the floor. I got a little vegetable patch going out the back. Fixed everybody's everything. Fans, the pump, a neighbor's motorbike once. The village HVAC man, they must have thought. I like being useful. I keep coming back to that word, useful. But that's what it was. And the money going out, it felt like part of that. Like belonging. It started at 20,000 baht a month to the parents. About 500 euro. That was just understood once we married. Knock's the eldest daughter, and the eldest daughter carries the family. That's how it works up there. And now I was the eldest daughter's husband. So, 20,000 a month. And it was fine. My pension covers a fair bit, and I told myself 20,000 baht to keep two old people comfortable is nothing, is a decent thing to do. Then it crept. That's the word for it. Crept. The uncle, Knock's uncle, diabetic, lived up the lane. His medicine, and then his foot went bad the way it does with the diabetes, and there were trips to the hospital in Udon, and could we help? Of course we help. What am I going to say? No, let the man's foot rot? So that's another few thousand a month, on and off. Then the niece, bright girl, needed the school fees and the uniform, and then it was a bit for the good school, the private one, because she was clever, and it would be a shame to waste it. And it would be a shame. She was clever. Each one on its own I could look at and say, yes, that's reasonable. That's what family does. I want to be really clear about that, because this is the whole thing. Not one of these was a con, not one. Every single one was a real person with a real need and a real cultural expectation that the family with money helps. And I was the family with money now. That was the deal I'd signed. I just hadn't read it as a deal. By about the year mark, I sat down one night, the terrace, a Leo, the geckos going tock-tock on the wall, that sound you stop hearing after a while. And I did the thing I do. I added it up. 40 years I've added things up. Couldn't help it. 20 to the parents, 5 or 6 for the uncle most months, 4 or 5 for the niece's schooling, and then the odds and ends. The funeral contribution for a neighbor, the temple donation at the festival, the mother's new tooth. 35,000 baht a month, near enough, going out the door. 900 euro, every month. Not counting the house, which was done and paid, but 35 a month forever on top of my own living. And I sat there and it wasn't panic. It was colder than that. It was the feeling I used to get standing in front of a system where the numbers didn't add up, where the pressure's dropping and you can't see the leak yet, but you know, there's a leak because the gauge doesn't lie. The gauge never lies. The number only went up. That's what I couldn't get past. In every system I ever worked on, you fix the fault and the reading settles. Here there was no reading that settled. Every month a new thing, and every new thing permanent, and nothing ever came off the list. The uncle didn't get better. The niece didn't stop needing school. A family isn't a fault you clear. It just keeps running. I told myself it was a phase. The uncle's foot would heal or, well, it would resolve. The school would finish. Things would settle down. I actually set it to knock, careful one evening, trying not to make it a thing. I said something like, when the uncle is better, when Ploy finishes the school, it will be less, yeah? The sending, it will come down. And she looked at me, not angry, puzzled, genuinely puzzled, like I'd asked something that didn't make sense, like I'd asked when water would stop being wet. She said, why come down? And she wasn't being cold. She wasn't. She just didn't understand the question. To her, there was no world where it came down. There'd always be a next thing, because that's what family is. It's just the next thing forever. And a good son-in-law with money doesn't ask when it stops anymore than he'd ask when he could stop loving his wife. The two things weren't separate for her. I see that now. I didn't see it then. I heard, why come down? And I filed it away, and I poured another Leo, and I told myself she'd misunderstood my English. She hadn't misunderstood my English. Then the father got sick. Properly sick. The kidneys. And that's where the numbers stopped creeping and started jumping. First round of treatment, they wanted 300,000 baht, nearly 8,000 euro, in one go, for the dialysis in the hospital in Udon and the doctors. And this, look, this is a man dying. This is Knock's father, the old boy who'd sat with me at the wedding and been kind to me, who'd never asked me for a thing directly in his life. What do? You tell me what you do. You pay. Of course you pay. I paid. And I remember writing that transfer, the 300,000, and I noticed my hand wasn't quite steady on the phone. Not because of the money exactly, because for the first time I let myself feel the shape of the thing, that there'd be a second round, that kidneys don't heal, that I'd just signed up for something with no bottom to it, and I'd signed up for it a year ago without reading it, and the paper was already signed. The father. My savings, both of them draining, and neither one with a valve I could reach. I paid the 300,000, and I told myself it was the worst of it. 6 months later, they asked for it again. The second time they asked for the 300,000, I didn't say no. I want to be honest about that. I didn't put my foot down, didn't make a stand. I paid it. Same as the first, because it was still the father, still dying, and you don't haggle over a dying man. But something had shifted in me by then. I paid it, and I went quiet. And I started for the first time actually watching. Not the way you watch a wife, the way I'd watch a system I no longer trusted the readings on. I went back to Utrecht for a spell around then, the 90-day business, and I needed to sort some things with my Dutch bank anyway. And it was there, sitting in that little flat again, gray out the window, that I properly did the accounts. All of it, on paper like a proper job. And I want to walk you through what I found, because the number is the whole story, the sin sod and the gold. 460,000 baht, the house all in with the creep, the terrace, the parents' bathroom, about 2.5 million. Then 18 months near enough of monthly support. Call it 35,000 a month average once it all stacked up. That's another 600,000 odd. And the father, 2 rounds, 600,000. Plus the little stuff, the phones, the fridge, the fixing, the festivals. I sat there with my pencil and I added it up 3 times because I didn't believe it the first 2. About 3.6 million baht. Gone. 90-something thousand euro. Of my 160, more than half. More than half of everything Marika and I had built. Everything the house had come to. More than half of it gone into a family and his son in under 2 years. And I had, what? A house I couldn't own, in a country I couldn't own it in, and a monthly bill that only ever went up. And here's the thing. Here's the thing I keep needing people to understand. There was no moment where I got scammed. I kept waiting to find it, sitting there. The lie, the betrayal, the Norwegian fellow on the side, like that story I'd read 100 years ago at the start of all this. I went looking for it in my own way. There wasn't one. There was no line message to find. Knock wasn't cheating. Knock wasn't squirreling my money into some secret account. Every single baht went exactly where I'd been told it went. The parents, the uncle's foot, the girl's school, the old man's kidneys. All of it real, all of it true. That's what I couldn't get my head round. In 40 years of work, when the numbers were that wrong, it meant somebody was lying. A reading that bad means a fault, means something hidden. And I sat there, and there was no fault. The system was doing exactly what it was built to do. I just hadn't understood what it was built to do when I wired myself into it. I flew back. And I'll be straight with you. Part of me flew back hoping I'd feel differently once I saw her, that the sun in her face would make the number stop mattering. It didn't happen like that. It came out over the niece, of all things. Ploy. The school fees again. The next term, and there was talk now of university in a couple of years, in Cancun, and the mother had raised it hopeful over dinner, and I heard myself go quiet in that particular way. And later, on the terrace, the geckos, a warm night, I finally said it. Not angry. I'm not really an angry man. I just said, Knock, I have to talk to you about the money. And I laid it out. The number. 3.6 million. More than half of everything I have in under 2 years. And I said, I can't do it at this rate. It has to come down. It has to stop somewhere. And she looked at me, and there was no guilt in her face. That's the part that stays with me. She wasn't caught. She wasn't ashamed. She was confused, almost hurt, but underneath the hurt, confused, like I'd said something that didn't parse. She said, But you are family now. Just that. Quiet. Like it explained everything. And in her world, it did explain everything. You are family now. Family doesn't stop. Family isn't a project with a budget and an end date. There is no version where it comes down, because coming down would mean you'd stop being family, and I hadn't stopped. So why would it come down? She wasn't defending herself because in her mind, there was nothing to defend. I was the one saying the mad thing. I was the one who'd promised, by marrying her, by paying the sin sod in front of the whole village, by building that house, I'd promised exactly this, and now I was acting like I hadn't. And the terrible thing, sitting there, was that she was right. I had promised that. I just hadn't known what I was promising. I'd read the word marriage and thought it meant what it meant in Utrecht. It didn't. It never had. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She didn't get angry and throw it back at me. She just went a bit still and sad and started clearing the plates, and somewhere in the clearing of the plates, I understood it was over. Not because either of us said so, because I'd asked the family to stop being a family, and she'd asked me to stop being confused about what I'd signed, and neither of us could give the other what they wanted. There was no villain to point at. I kept reaching for one all the way home. There wasn't one. Just a good woman and a lonely man and about 90,000 euro and a word, family, that meant two completely different things depending on which end of it you were standing. I started quietly, working out how to leave. Not with a scene, just how to close it down, which is its own kind of grief when nobody did anything wrong. I didn't do it all at once. That's not my way. You don't rip a system out while it's still running. You shut it down in order, valve by valve. I told Knock the truth, or as much of it as would carry across the gap between us. That I wasn't angry, that I didn't think she'd done anything wrong. And I meant that. I still mean it. But that I couldn't be what the family needed me to be, not without emptying the last of what I had, and that a man of 63 can't refill a bank account. There's no more working years to me. What's in there is what there is. She understood that part, actually. The money running out. That she understood. It was the other thing she couldn't understand, that I'd want to leave over it. To her, you don't leave family because times get hard. You just get poorer together. And maybe that's the more decent way to see it, honestly. I've thought about that. Maybe she was the one who understood marriage properly and I was the one who'd got it wrong my whole life. I kept sending money for a while, even after. Wound it down slow. 20,000, then 10, then a few months where I just cleared the immediate things. The father's next round. Ploy's term that was already paid for in everyone's heads. I didn't want to yank it away from old people and a schoolgirl who'd done nothing but be born into a family that expected the farang to provide. That wasn't their fault. None of it was anybody's fault. That's the whole rotten miracle of it. The house I signed away, in effect. It was never mine to sign, that was the point. I didn't fight it. I didn't get some Bangkok lawyer to chase a usufruct after the fact. Half of them will just take your money too, and I was done handing money to people for things I couldn't hold in my hand. I left it. 65,000 euro of concrete and tile in a village outside Udon, with the parents living in it and Knock. Let them have it. What was I going to do? Get it bulldozed out of spite? I'm not that man. I built it because I wanted to be a good man building something. The wanting was real even if I was a fool. I'll keep the wanting and leave them the house. So, the damage. Since I'm the man who adds it up, about 100,000 euro, all in by the time I'd wound it down. Left me with maybe 60 of the 160. My pension, thank God, is my pension. Dutch AOW plus the work pension. That keeps coming. They can't touch that, and it's enough to live small. So I'm not on the street. I want to be clear, this isn't the story of a man ruined. I've got a roof. I've got soup. Plenty in this world have less. But I'm 63, back in a rented flat in Utrecht. And the 60,000 that's meant to see me out to the end is a lot thinner than the 160 I came home with the first time to sell the house. And that 160 was Marika's too, in a way. That was 36 years of the two of us. And I put more than half of it into a family that will, I've no doubt, remember me kindly and never quite understand why I left. What did I lose? Money, yes. Nearly 2 years. A fair bit of pride. A man who told you at the start he was too sensible to be fooled, and then wasn't fooled at all, which is somehow worse. Nobody fooled me. I walked in with my eyes open and my homework done, and I still didn't see the one thing that mattered. Here's what I'd say to you, to the fellow watching this who's got a knock of his own, or thinks he's about to. It's not the scam you have to watch for. Everybody's braced for the scam. The bar girl with the sick buffalo, the line messages, the boyfriend on the side. You'll spot that a mile off, you're not stupid. What you won't spot is the good one, the real one, the decent woman who genuinely cares for you and also, without a flicker of dishonesty, expects that marrying her means carrying her whole family, forever, with no line in the sand and no year it ends. Both those things are true at once. That's not a contradiction to her. It's only a contradiction to you because you're bringing a Utrecht idea of marriage to an Izan one, and the two don't fit, and nobody tells you they don't fit until your money's already in the concrete. So learn what the word means before you sign it. Sit down with her, before the wedding, before the sin sod, and ask the ugly questions. How much every month? For how long? What happens when the parents are gone? Does it stop or does it move to the next in line? Get it said out loud. If she loves you, it'll survive the asking. And get the paperwork, the usufruct, the lease, the thing that lets you at least sit in the house you paid for. Not because she's a thief, because you might be the one who dies first or the one who has to leave. And a system doesn't run on how much you trust it. It runs on how it's built. I knew that. 40 years I knew that about everything except my own life. That's it. That's all I've got. That's Bass. And I'll tell you why we ran this one, because I know some of you came for the scam story, and this wasn't quite that. That's the point. Most of what happened to Bass wasn't a betrayal. It was a genuine collision between two ideas of family, two ideas of what a marriage even is, and he was the only one at that table who didn't know the terms. Thai family obligation is real. It runs deep, it's honorable in its own world, and it is not built around a Western man's retirement arithmetic. A woman can love you completely and still expect you to carry her family until the day you die, and she won't feel a shred of dishonesty about it because in her world that is love. Both things live together. If you can't hold both of those in your head at once, this isn't the country to marry in. So do the thing Bass didn't. Ask the hard questions before the wedding, not after. Get the amounts named. Get the paperwork, a usufruct, a registered lease, real protection on anything you pay for, because you cannot own the land and trust is not a legal document. And know the difference between she's lying to me and she means something completely different by the same word. The second one will cost you just as much, and it'll do it while everyone's smiling. Look after yourselves out there. Do your homework, the real homework, not the forum horror story kind, and we'll see you on the next one, here on This is Thailand.